ringing right now, the man himself, former WCW, WWE, Japan superstar, public speaker as well, former trainer Tough Enough. Hopefully he won't be yelling at us like he did those theaters on TV. Keep him all in a good mood. Welcome, good old brother, Bill DeMott. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, how you doing?
Doing good. How you feeling today? Everything going well?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I can't. As hard as I try, I can never live down that Tough Enough era. People,
yeah.
You know, like I said, I have a face for radio, and people think I'm always mad. So it's one of those things, you know.
It's all fine. Say it, sir. Thank you for coming on to the show. I know we talked a lot off camera. It's very much an honor to have you on at this time of night. Have you on, and
thank you.
Like you said on Twitter, this is a rare live interview that you do, so we're gonna make the most of it.
All right, sounds good, man. Yo, I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for having me on.
No problem at all. No problem. Well, to start things off first, but before we even get into your illustrious career with wrestling and the fan questions, and even have a couple of surprise notes from you from some of your old colleagues back in the day of wrestling. What we want to talk about seriously is KAD Matters, about your foundation, sir, of sending our condolences. Your late daughter, beautiful daughter, passed away, I believe just in October of last year of a drunk driver. Just wanted to give you time right now to talk about the foundation and the awareness and what you have coming up with that.
Well, thank you. My middle daughter, Carrie Ann, was killed by a multiple DUI offender on October 10th of 2015. And I go and try to support my daughter, and I go and speak around the state of Florida and around the country about the DUI laws and drunk driving and the decisions that people make, because it was not an accident, it was not a crash, it was just a decision that someone made that changed the lives of so many people. So my family and I have started the Carrie Ann DeMott Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization, and we will be working within our community and spreading awareness about more than just drunk and impaired driving, but about the decisions that people make. And you know, I speak at high schools and universities, and that's basically the foundation was made for my daughter and for us to bring awareness. And people can go and follow everything we do on www.thecarrieanndemottfoundation.com. And we're just trying to, I say it and you'll hear me say it on social media all over the place. My daughter was going to change the world, and I'm just going to help her do that. And that's my focus in life. That's what I do now. And so when I get a chance to talk a little wrestling, I look forward to it. But that's my daughter was 20 years old, and no parent should have to lose their child that way.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm doing now, and it's a long way from the wrestling ring. You know what I mean?
Yes. We do commend you for the courage that you have with the unfortunate passing of your daughter, the fact that you went to try to make a difference in other people's lives, speaking at universities, high schools. They see that you've been speaking to a lot of Highway Patrol, and you spoke to the Florida Highway Patrol Academy, a lot of police departments. You've been speaking, doing a lot of public speaking and events.
I work closely with the FHP in Florida, and I go up and speak to every new recruit class they have. So I'm up there once a month in Tallahassee, and now currently working with the legislature right now with the senators and the House of Representatives here in Florida to try to get the laws changed. And we're trying to get the law changed and name it Kerry's Law, so that every DUI offender has to have an ignition interlock device that would not let them operate their car if they were drunk or impaired. So I work closely with legislation, and there's still talk of maybe next year of running for office or something like that. And you never know where life is going to take you, but that's what I'm doing now. So to sit in front of senators and governors and make trips around the state and the Southeast to get these laws changed is a full-time job.
It is, and like I said, we do give you courage and honor for that of speaking out on that and taking something in life that is negative that happened in life and turn it to a positive, a positive thing. And I know it's tough. I have a daughter myself. She just started high school. I do know some other staff members have kids, and I could never imagine that. But you got strong. You're making a positive image, and we want to commend you for that.
Thank you, man.
What you're doing, what you're doing reminds us of I know we're here in Baltimore. We've had it, and I'm sure it was back in the day. It was called the DARE program. I'm not sure if you heard of that,
right.
Where somebody would come and we had the hats and the pens and the pencils, and they would talk about
right.
drunk driving, and you really don't hear much of that. And it's a good thing that we have you to bring that out and then make it aware, make people talk about DUI, drunk driving, the carries law, which I do hope do get passed. So that's a great idea of making so people can't drink while they're impaired with alcohol.
Every 52 seconds in this country, somebody is killed from drunk or impaired driver. Every 52 seconds. And I don't want to bring everybody down. I know it's a live show, but these are the statistics that people don't talk about. So I want to leave with that. And, we could talk wrestling, and I appreciate the format of being able to talk about my daughter and what we're doing now. And everybody can follow me on Twitter and Facebook and follow the foundation on everything we're doing. And I appreciate you guys getting the word out there. And I hope to be up in your area speaking to the schools and law enforcement and things like that as well. So I appreciate that time for that.
Oh, no problem. Well, I don't mention my personal life much on air, but something rare that I do that. My father is a cop. I have a cousin that's a Baltimore City cop, very high ranking. So I can reach out to my father and my cousin and reach out to them.
Let's do it, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll reach out to them and see what they could do to, bring it aware. Bring it aware.
Yeah.
At least can do that for you. No problem.
And,
like I said,
and please thank them for their service.
No problem.
The cops,
no problem at all.
They don't get enough props anymore.
Yeah, they don't. And like we mentioned, sir, that Bill, our show, even though our show foundation is wrestling, we cover other topics. We cover politics. We talk about pop culture. So this is a live show. You're on the show. This is your time. Even though I'm the host and I'm in charge of it, you're the one everybody's listening to. You already hear me enough. And whatever you want to talk about, you want to talk about your daughter some more, any memories, that's fine. It's about hearing the side of you that people don't get to say, yeah, we know wrestling and we'll get to wrestling, but about the real Bill DeMott and not Hugh Morris or WWE and WCW. It's good to hear about you outside of the ring.
I think it's important for people to understand as much as, and I say this when I speak to students, as much as the internet and everything is good for society now, I think it's important for guys that are in the, for a guy like, let's say, Kevin Owens. People don't know who Kevin Owens is. They know the character. People don't know who Randy Orton is. They know the character. And that goes up and down the line for years and years and years. And sometimes people, it's funny when I go in to speak and I'm speaking to parent organizations and the dad goes, oh, my God, that's Bill DeMott. But then the message that I deliver is so different than what they expect. And I think it's really important for people to understand that there's life outside of wrestling, and when you have an opportunity to get to know people, take advantage of that. And to me, that goes a lot farther than what you read or what you hear or what someone else said. And I think that's a better tool for people. But it's I say it's funny when people, they recognize me and they go, no, you're that guy, and then they go, no, you're not that guy. So it's cool to meet people outside of wrestling and them to get to know me a little bit, So I enjoy that. So it's, when they hear a former wrestler is going to run for office, everybody jumps on it like it's a big story because he's a wrestler. But we have a platform and we have a message, and we want to work with our community. So I look forward to meeting people and hopefully changing their perception of what they think they know. But wrestling
right.
is, I tell I just turned 51 years old, so I talk to my mom. Thank you. I talk to my mom the same way all the time, and I tell her, people don't know what they get until you get in front of them, but to me, everything I do in my life has come from wrestling. So I put the same rules and ideals that we had in wrestling into life, and how I deal with people and how you gauge things, and wrestling rules apply in life, from day to day, and how you deal with business and what you've learned behind the scenes. So I'm the first one to say I'm grateful for my career and everything I've done, and wrestling has given me. Listen, if I was just, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to anybody, but if I was just Bill DeMott who never did anything, I'm not sure I would have the platform I have now for my daughter and our foundation, and for the opportunities to speak. But when people hear that it happened to someone who quote unquote is a celebrity, they go, "Oh, wait a minute, maybe we have to talk to this guy."
Exactly.
So I'm grateful for wrestling, and that's why, when I can, I talk wrestling, but, it's far and few between. I just did a training camp at the Monster Factory up there in New Jersey, and I loved it. And I love being
my good old buddy.
in the ring. I love it.
Yeah, shout out to Danny Cage, from friends of ours.
I'll be back up there in February.
Oh, great. Well, we're not far away from Pennsylvania, so I definitely, we don't hook up before then. We could hook up then in February and meet up with you.
Yeah, let's do that, man. Because wrestling is freaking awesome. I love wrestling. I love everything about it.
Yes, it is. Speaking of wrestling, and I know we're talking more on a lighter note, and any time if you want to bring up anything for us about, your daughter or your family, feel free to do so.
Thank you. I try to, but I get very emotional, and it gets hard to speak, so I'm going to do my best not to do that to your fans tonight.
This is no problem at all. That's why it's live. You know how it is. That's why it's live. You get the raw. It's not taped, so anything you get is legit. There's no editing or playing around with the crowd noise or any messing around with the dialogue here. Couple of buddies of ours, I believe you know them, sent me a text. I believe Kevin Sullivan, a good friend of mine, wanted me to tell you hello. He was out
not
family
like Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster.
Yes, the Taskmaster, yes. Former guest of the show, I talked to him. We text each other maybe once a week. A good buddy of mine. He wanted me to tell you hello. And another guy, Ed Ferrara, wanted me to tell you hello, too. So he had good times with you.
Eddie Ferrara's a Jersey boy. I love Ed Ferrara. He made me laugh. I talk to Vince Russo all the time, and those guys never get the props I think they deserve, but they treated me with nothing but respect, and I love Ed Ferrara and Vince. I speak to Vince all the time. But getting back to Sullivan, I tell everybody I've talked to that Sullivan was the one who gave me my opportunities, and Sullivan was the one who believed in me, and he taught me so much about the business, along with, my coach was Johnny Rhodes, and Johnny Rhodes taught me about the business, and then Sullivan, took me to college in it and taught me more about it, and how to survive it, and lack of a better term, play the game, and just be a part of it. I love Kevin Sullivan. The guy's a genius.
Yes, he is, and good guy to talk to, and like you said, it's perception. Talking to Kevin, you've seen him on TV, the Taskmaster, the Games Master, the Dungeon of Doom, and you meet the man in person. He's just so cool, laid back, smoking cigars. Hey, brother, what's up? It's not, like you said, it's not what you expect. You see fans like, wow, Kevin Sullivan's kind of cool, but that's all you knew growing up. All of us as fans is the double stomp and the trio roll and the vignettes. And then you meet these people one-on-one. It's just cool guys, nice guys. And one of the nicest guys we met in the business, my staff could say, surprisingly one of the nicest guys we had the pleasure to meet in the business.
Yeah, he's just an awesome cat, and he's funny as hell. And don't get me wrong, he can be crazy, but his mind is tremendous. And every time I get to speak of him, it's always on a positive tip, because he never gave me reason to speak otherwise. And I watched him and I tried to learn from him. And it goes back to your point. People see one person that way and they never expect it. But when you get a chance to hang out with certain guys or girls, and you just go, wow, I never knew that they were like normal people.
Yeah, they are. You mentioned some names, and a buddy of ours, we were very good buddies of Russo, who's been on our show, as well as Bischoff. The names you mentioned always surround around controversy. Of course, the stories of Russo, and then Kevin Sullivan and Ed Forever, and of course you being in controversy, you being mean and being a tough enough trainer. Why do you think? And we'll get to this because we're getting fan questions now, and we'll get through the tough enough thing. The controversial thought of you, Bill, being a bully, and you heard it a lot with you, and you heard it was Al Snow, and then people mentioned JBL, of you guys being bullies. Now, for me, I have a background in amateur wrestling, and my staff, some of my staff members do too. We grew up around the hard-nosed guys. That's how you got better. The hard-nosed is that push you.
Yeah.
Nowadays, this generation, if you yell a little bit or push them, you call them mean. So you had the floor now. Why do you think that started with you being a bully, and how do you feel about that?
Well, I don't really think much about it. I have a theory on why it's said, because I think that's the easy out for people. And people come in with a preconceived notion of who they're going to be in front of, or what it's going to be. And if anybody's been a fan of the business for the past 28 years, my claim to fame has been one of two things: being Goldberg's first match, or being the tough enough trainer who was the hard ass. And that's what people take off. People don't know me. They go off of what they think they're going to see, and then that's the story they tell. And you can't, as you get older, you figure out that you can't control what people say or what they do. You can only control what you say and what you do. But I think it's an easy out. I think in the age of entitlement, and not just in wrestling, in life itself, there's just a generation that has entitlement. And I think it's the easy out to point the finger at someone instead of just knuckling up and doing your thing and not worrying about what could happen, or making excuses for what might happen, and just go see what will happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Every coach, it's always going to be the coach. The coach gets fired, not the quarterback. The team sucks on ice. They're going to get rid of the coach first.
Yes.
So,
that is
and
true.
a lot of the complaints that I found in the past and in other situations, and in other sports too, is that people who have never been coached or done anything before are the people that find it hard to adapt to a certain lifestyle. But that's just my, everything is an opinion, just like wrestling is an opinion. So that's just my opinion.
No, I agree. We've been coached, and they call you mean compared to the coaches I've had in sports and we've had in sports. You be a Boy Scout, yelling, spitting. You just like, come on, but in sports, if a coach did that, and it was always, whenever you have a coach and you're coaching wrestling or a team sport, if you look at it, the coach like yourself, it wasn't always. The coach didn't yell or didn't really push. He would push the whole team. There will always be those few people, those few wrestlers, those few players that he pushed even harder. And people don't look and think that, okay, the coach is pushing you extra hard, he sees it in you. He sees that potential. There's always going to be the one or two wrestlers or baseball players that work hard, but, okay, they're not going to be anything. But if a true coach that was good would see the one or two players or the one or two athletes that had that potential but needed that extra push, he won't be doing it because he can, but if he didn't, he won't be pushing you that hard.
Yeah.
So,
you know, and it's hard, like you said it too, and it's hard to say. People, you know, everybody has a different, you know, outlook on things, and right now, and I think it's always been the way, perception is reality, and so for me, I think to answer your question, how do I handle it? I just, you know, I have to go with what I know, and then try not to, you know, I don't really dwell on a lot of negative things and negative press, and everybody's got an opinion. And let's face it, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Sullivan's not everybody's cup of tea. Vince Russo's not everybody's cup of tea. This program's not everybody's cup of tea. So somebody somewhere is always going to be upset. Someone somewhere is always going to have something to say, and it's always going to be someone else's fault, or, you know, they're not doing it the right way. So I think once everybody comes to grips with that you're not going to please everybody, then you have to decide how you're going to walk through life. I've said it before, I choose the high road. I don't choose to dwell on things that, one, I can't control. And then for me, just the nuts and bolts of it is I don't choose to give any I don't want to add fuel to the fire, because, you know, things that are said are just one person's thoughts or what they said. And if you then debate it or defend it or talk bad against it, then you're just adding fuel to it and then making it happen. I'm just not that kind of cat. So I try to stay away from as much of that as possible.
No, understandable. How legit, and getting fan questions, how legit, you want to know, how legit or real, because, you know, Tough Enough was around when reality TV kind of was starting. It was really one of the first reality TV shows, Tough Enough, yeah, Real World, and the other MTV show I can't think of. How legit was Tough Enough, as far as what the viewers saw was actually what happened, and how much of it was, of course, was contrived, that we had to produce in your ear saying, you got to do this, you got to do that?
Well, the shows that I was a part, I came in on the third season, and so I was in 2003, I think was my first season, and there was no scripts. I mean, the reality TV is different now, like Total Divas and things like that. They kind of they want you in situations, and, you know, we need to have this happen, or let's make this scenario happen, or let's tell this story. Back when we were doing Tough Enough, Al Snow and I, and before even when it was Taz and, you know, and those guys, it was not scripted. You filmed and you put the mics on us, and what you got was what you got. And the greatest thing to me about that Tough Enough was, the thing that was great and bad at the same time was we were together for 3 months, and people only saw an hour or 45 minutes a week of what we did. So it was a bigger process back then, because there was so much. It was just natural human nature and responses, you know. So back then it wasn't scripted, and everything was happening live. And you know, as reality TV got bigger, just like everything else, it becomes Hollywood. But yeah, no one sat with me every day and put makeup on me and said, Bill, we need this to happen, or can you do this to this guy? We went out and trained men and women to wrestle, and everybody watched it unfold.
I definitely enjoyed it. I did. With that being said, Bill, I'm going to turn it over to you. One of our correspondents, Toph from Atlanta, Georgia. Go ahead, brother, and go ahead.
Oh, hey, Mr. DeMott. Is it okay if I call you Mr. DeMott?
No, you can please call me Bill. Mr. DeMott is, call me Bill.
Okay, Bill. I got a lot of questions to ask you. You're one of my favorite workers from WCW. Used to see you perform all the time back in the day.
Thank you.
The first question I had for you is, I think the first thing that you were known for, at least for me when I was a kid, was you used to do the moonsault. And, nowadays, seeing people do those kind of high-flying moves is pretty common. But, back then, there wasn't that many people. especially men of your size, doing moves like that. The only folks I can really think of is like you, Vader. I think Bam Bam. I haven't really seen all of Bam Bam's work. So could you talk about the moonsault? How did you master that move? Because of your size, like were people hesitant to take the bump, or how did that work?
Well, I firmly believe that the guy who was underneath me had no say in it, because if that was the finish, that was it. You were going to take it. I was a fan of the bigger guys, and when I got involved in wrestling, I was watching things, and I was pretty agile in my career. But I wrote it in my book, and I tell the story all the time. It happened in a pool in Puerto Rico on a day off, and there was a bunch of guys sitting around enjoying the day off, acting like a bunch of idiots, and I got dared to, do a belly flop, and I wasn't a belly flop, so everybody was doing different dives, and I wound up following Ricky Santana and doing the backflip, which is the moonsault. But it leads back to Kevin Sullivan saying that I was going to do it in Japan or never work again, and I'd never done it in a wrestling ring. I just did it in a pool. But with Vader doing it and Bigelow doing it, those were the only two big guys that were doing it. And then, then it was the great Muda. So here I am in Japan getting an opportunity to do what those guys did and tried to do it better than they did. And it just worked out, and it got me through my career. And, fortunately and unfortunately, I did it every night.
Okay, when you first came to WCW, did you have to go to the power plant, or did they figure that you were already good enough to perform?
No, they brought me in. Kevin Sullivan brought me in. I was finishing up with Japan, and they brought me into I forget the town now all of a sudden, but we were down south in Georgia. They flew me in, and we shook hands, and that was it. I'd been to the power plant, I think, twice on days off because I wanted to go there, and I actually trained with a couple of the younger guys. But no, I never went through the power plant. I guess I was seasoned enough with Puerto Rico and Mexico and Japan to come in and just start working.
Okay, so you didn't go to the power plant. Do you have any memories of the power plant, like what it was like?
No, I mean, when I was there, Orndorff was there, and Jody Hamilton, and Sarge was doing his thing, and I never really paid attention to it. Naturally, you hear the stories, and the power plant was brutal and all this other stuff. And like I said, I'm not a big. If I didn't experience it, I have nothing to say about it. But it was a great facility. I mean, at the time, it was a top-notch facility. But I don't have any memories of, wow, we did this or anything like that. I went there. I got got changed into my gear. I worked out, and I went home.
Okay. Since you're one of the more notable big men in wrestling, could you take this time a little bit to tell the fans exactly some of the things that is a little bit harder to do if you're a big man in the ring? Like, is the psychology different? Is the pacing different? The cardio and stuff. Like, you have to wrestle a different style. So are there any things that you could tell the fans that are a little bit harder to do because of your size compared to, say, someone smaller, like a Daniel Bryan or a Seth Rollins, someone like that?
I think the trick for guys in my time, in my era, were trying to do, and especially in Japan and Puerto Rico and Mexico, you had that freedom to do things. I wanted to be able to do some of the things that the legitimate cruiserweights were doing and the mass guys. So, learning to jump to the top rope and coming off the top rope with all those moves and hitting a 450 splash and, moonsaulting to the outside became everyday stuff as time went on. And now you see what these guys do, the big guys do now is unbelievable. But you had to be ready. So I don't know. I never trained any differently. I knew what I wanted to accomplish in the ring, and I knew I had to be ready. So, you had to be in good cardio shape at 350 pounds, and you had to be able to go 20-plus minutes every night on the live events. And, you had to look the part. And I didn't want to be a big, overly obese guy. I wanted to be a big, burly, I was in that same thing with, Scott Norton and all those guys. We were all built the same way. And So you wanted to work differently because every big guy is considered a power guy. I wanted to be a flexible, agile guy too. So I just worked at it, and luckily it paid off.
Okay. The next question I have is this is one of the more popular fan questions, so I have to ask you this one. The Misfits in action, the MIA. You guys look like y'all are having a really good time with that. Can you talk about, from what you remember, because I know it's been a long time, was that like an idea from creative, or did any of you guys have a say in it? Sometimes you just see folks do things like the New Day, for instance. Some of the stuff that they do, you can tell there's no way you can script that. They're just kind of being themselves, sort of. How much creative input did you guys have with the Misfits, and did you enjoy it? Because it looked like you guys were having fun.
We get, that whole thing started was, and when things started to go a little south in WCW, I mean, we were a bunch of guys who were we were called a bunch of misfits, and I think it was Bischoff who cut a promo and used that word. So we tried to figure it out. When I say we, it was guys like Chavo and Lash and myself and Van Hammer, and then later Jerry Tootie, and went and sat with Vince Russo, and Vince said, let's try this, and then it was all us, and they really did give us the creative freedom to come up with the vignettes we had of the backstage stuff and some of the verbiage, and it was all us, and we started coming up with the names, and it was fun, and we had a lot of fun doing it, and because we were having fun, we kind of revitalized, at least me, just speaking for myself, and because, you go 280 days a year, you don't want to be miserable, but if you can go and work and feel like you're, adding to the success of the brand, or, bringing some new energy to it, and that's what we did. And we had a lot of fun shooting it, and in turn, the production people enjoyed working with us. So it gave us an opportunity to show who we were behind the scenes and in front of the camera. But yeah, we all had a lot of fun doing it, and we were given a lot of creative liberty with that.
Okay, I got two more questions for you. If that's okay.
Okay.
The next question I have for you is, what were your first impressions of Goldberg when you first worked with him, and were you aware of how successful and how big he would be?
I met Bill. Bill was very unassuming. He was just like anybody else. He was just he's a big cat. I knew he played football, knew he was training, and not that I didn't think anything of the night. I knew my job and what I was there to do, and my job was to, hopefully get him over, and at the same time, stay alive a little bit, and that's just what we did. And I don't think anybody knew. I think they had an idea of maybe what they had in mind, and what happened were two different things. Hey, here's a big guy. He's got a football background. He's athletic. Maybe we can do something with him. And that night in Salt Lake, I think he made everybody's decision change, and they went, holy shnikes, we got to go with this. And, I mean, the rest, even until this past weekend, has been history. So, like, when I see Bill, it's nothing but a big hug and a chance for us to catch up on the time we've missed and the things like that. I appreciate if nothing else, the part of wrestling history that I played a part in was Goldberg's first match. And Bill's to me, he's just a stand-up guy. Like I said earlier, people love and hate people. They make a decision on who they are. I got to know Bill and who he is and what he stands for and what he's about. So wrestling is just a small part, but I had no idea. I don't think anybody had an idea how big the Goldberg thing was going to become. And I don't think anybody had an idea of what it was going to do when they brought it back just this past couple months. So hats off to him. I'm happy for him.
Me too. Okay, the last question. Of all the opponents you've worked with, and this might be a hard one for you, who would you say was your favorite opponent to be in the ring with? What person complimented your style the most?
There's two people I enjoyed working with. I take it back. There's probably three. I enjoyed working with Randy Savage. I enjoyed working with Sting. And I enjoyed working with Lance Storm. I can't think of I'd really be hard-pressed to have to sit for a long time and think of someone I didn't want to work with. But those three guys, my first 6 months was with Randy Savage when I got into WCW on live events and TVs and stuff. And then Sting all the time. We were in and out when he needed an opponent and things like that. And then Lance Storm and I had a great run towards the end of the company's history. I think those are probably my three favorite guys. If I had to name somebody right now, those would be the three.
Well,
okay. That's all I got. Thanks for answering the questions, Bill.
Yeah, man. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, Bill. So Bill, you mentioned Sting, Lance Storm, and Savage, and a friend of ours, Landy Powerful, of course, Savage's brother, been on our show many times and told great stories of Savage. You hear about the intensity of Randy, and some people, of course, were scared of Randy's intensity. When we had DDP on the show earlier this year, he talked about how him and Savage had great chemistry and how Savage called them and thanked them about the great matches that they had. Talk about the difference. You mentioned those three specifically of all the great talent that was in WCW. How did you adjust? Bring us in the ring with you of the differences of working with Sting, with Lance Storm, and with Savage.
Well, so Randy Savage is intense. So, and when I was getting involved in wrestling, he was on top in WWF at the time. And when I got to meet him, I got, he was a pretty open guy and said, this is what I do, kid. This is how it works. And if you stick with me, I'll lead you through it and we'll have some fun. And he allowed me to relax and be me. And I learned a lot from Randy in and out of the ring. The same thing with Sting is he was so open to trying things that I actually had fun. I could be the laughing man with him in the ring. And then he'd get to see that that's the kind of guy I was behind the scenes. And he goes, oh, my gosh, you're the same in and out of the ring. And that's a lot of fun when guys get to know each other like that. And then still have the respect and go out there and bang and protect each other the best they can. Go out there and bang and then still be able to talk. And, don't get me wrong, we didn't spend Christmas Eves together and things like that, but we had a good working relationship and I enjoyed them. And then to me, Lance Storm, the run I did have as Hugh Morrison and using my real name there coming off the Misfits thing would have never happened if it wasn't for Lance, because I had a lot of little medical issues and he knew every move I could make and do, and he was just there, and he's just a professional, and he was a good family man. Our daughters were the same. We had so much in common, and we were so opposite because he's very quiet and unassuming. I was just very loud and very bold. But when we got in the ring, we just gelled, and it just happened. And it was, to me, it was, I can only speak for myself. It was magic, and I enjoyed every night of it. I didn't have to wonder. I just knew whatever was going to happen, we were going to go out there and deliver and do it again the next night. So those three guys meant the world to me as far as just being men, and then how they handled themselves in and out of the ring.
Thank you for that. Fan question, see, the time with WCW is, with Sting, finally, we was the unicorn. Vince finally got him. He finally wrestled for WWE. Fans want to know your thoughts of how Sting was used in WWE so far, and they want to know your thoughts of Goldberg match with Brock, if you saw the Survivor Series, of it being very quick.
Here my thoughts on Sting is, I think like many people, I wish it would have lasted longer, the run. I know he got injured. I wasn't there. I know he got injured, and I was happy to see him get into the Hall of Fame. I think like a lot of wrestling fans, we wish there was more wrestling involved. I still believe in some way, shape, or form he could be back involved with WWE when he chooses. But I was happy for him, and he looked great because the guy he didn't have to do it. He just loves to do it, and the timing was right, and good for him. And as far as Goldberg Brock, I actually stayed away from that when I had my son had a baseball tournament But then the shame of it was I got to watch it. Someone filmed it on Facebook and showed it, so I watched the whole thing. And I thought it was great business. I thought it was great business. Good generating business.
It is. Another fan question, Bill. They wanted to know your thoughts of the Invasion Angle of WCW. And also the one, and you said, I'm looking at now, this just got the question. One of your thoughts of the Invasion Angle, and also if you can talk to us about, since you was in WCW before the Monday Night Wars and during it with the NWO, talk to us about the change that you saw.
Okay, let's conquer the Invasion Angle. I was so stoked to be included in that and to be one of the 11 or 12 that was initially brought in. And it's so hard. I can't speak for the guys who actually have to come up with this stuff, but they had a locker room full of talent that weren't getting on TV. Then they bring in all these new guys that they hired, and now we're going to take their TV spots, and we're going to do all these things, and I think we just did it too fast. And when I say we, I think as a company, I think it was all done so fast that no one could appreciate what could have happened. I'll never question Vince. I think he's a genius. I'll never question how he does business. I just felt like, if it would have lasted a little longer, we could have really shined and probably got more out of it. But everybody gets disappointed when they hear me say, I was just honored to be part of the beginning of that. And do I wish it was more? Hell yeah, I wish it was more. But to be able to be in it from the beginning, it was an honor. And and if anybody knows me, I'm just grateful for the career I've had. So I was disappointed. I felt like we were given some good opportunities, and no matter what happened, the WCW guys always found a way to screw it up. So we had it was a big learning process coming from the WCW into WWE. It was two different mindsets, and I think that played a huge part in the Invasion Angle.
Yeah, if you can, Bill, could you elaborate a little more on the differences of working for WCW and then going to WWE and the different mindsets and the machine that still is WWE?
The mindset in WCW was, here we are, we're the guys, we're the talent, we're going to say when we show up. 1 o'clock call time means 4:30, and here's how we do things, and we don't have to say hello to everybody. Everybody should know who we are, and it's just it was a different way of doing business. In WCW, you say hello, and you make sure you see everyone, and you don't wait till the end of the night. You don't go hide. You don't just go sit in catering, and you go to the ring, and you work out, and you get better at your craft. And in WCW, that was kind of lost. The attitude was a little more laid back and a little bit more entitlement, for sure, in WCW, in my opinion. Not with everybody, just some people. And then we got to the WWE, and instead of being grateful and walking into the locker room and kind of working your way into the locker room, I feel like as a whole, we just walked in there and thought we belonged there. And we didn't work our way in and earn that. We were starting over, and I feel like we didn't earn the respect. We just thought we deserved it. And I say we as a group. So not singling any one or two or anybody out. As a group, the mindset was different, and the ones who adapted to it and understood that were the ones who survived it and lasted past the invasion and lasted past the first year and things like that. And just some people moved on. As far
how long did it? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead and finish. I know the second question about the.
I wasn't sure what the second part of the question was, so I stopped.
Yeah, the second one from a couple of fans is they wanted to know, explain the differences you saw being in WCW before the Monday Night Wars, and then seeing the Monday Night Wars happen and the change that you saw in WCW with the NWO, and then of course, you was there with Goldberg's first match and the cruiserweights. They wanted your ideas of how did you see the business change being in WCW before the Monday Night Wars and after?
Well, I thought that, I got there and it was just at the cusp of starting, and guys were working, and Nitro was the A show, and Thunder was the B show, and then business started to pick up, and talent started to come over, and then you saw the shuffling of the guard, and I felt like guys were actually out there trying to outwork each other again, and it should always be that way. You should always go out there and show everybody what you got, and kind of like, hey, follow that mentality. And I saw that happen, and then as soon as we became number one and we're winning the Monday Night Wars, then all the top dogs were taken over, and they kind of had the company by the short hairs, and business was just running amok. But the whole time that we were number one in the wars, business was crazy. And for me, it just meant I was working more live events and house shows, so I was booked and getting work. So that was cool.
Yeah. It helped you out. Definitely did.
Yeah, it definitely helped me out.
With being in WWE for the time that you were, doing the Invasion Angle, how long did it take you that you felt that you got acclimated into the locker room, you started getting the respect of the boys in WWE? Because like you said, you're coming from the rival company, and of course, like any job, when you come from one company to another, you're starting over, you got to gain that respect. When did you feel that you got in good with the boys, to say?
Well, I think it happened for me. I feel like it happened right away because I understood. I feel like I understood what we were doing, and I didn't go in there with my chest puffed out, and I went in there and didn't just lay my bag down the middle of the floor and get changed. You found a corner, you stayed out of everybody's way, you said hello. I had a couple of relationships with some of the guys that were already there, and it sounds funny to say, but I think my reputation followed me up there. And I'm not, contrary to some people, I'm not an ass or someone who's hard to get along with. And I just showed them that I wanted to be there. And when someone there had something to say, I was all ears. I wanted to learn. Because as long as you're in the business, you're going to learn something. So I just feel like, for me, for Bill DeMott personally, I just went in there with the mindset of I'm going to learn what they do because I now work for them.
Thank you for that. Your thoughts of you was doing the homework earlier on research early this week. We're having you on is Jericho. I know you did Jericho's podcast last year.
Yeah.
Your thoughts of Jericho since you were in WCW. Jericho was around that time, and to see how he was one of the few that was in WCW, went through before the Monday Night Wars, during the Monday Night Wars, went into WWE, busted his tail, and now to see him as one of the top performers in WWE still to this day.
I mean, he was a student of the game, and he wanted to be better, and he understood what it would take to be a top guy and to be a go-to guy, and he built his relationships. And people, he's another guy who doesn't get the credit he deserves. I mean, he doesn't have to be there. He's done it. He's a Hall of Famer. He's going into the Hall of Fame. And the fact that he's there and he's passing the baton and working with the younger guys night in and night out and then still keeping his other schedules is amazing. But, Chris set himself up for success and by being a student of the game and understanding that it's business. And, you have to have people who are your advocates, not to quote Paul Heyman, but you have advocates and you have people who want to see you succeed, and therefore you will succeed. If you have to put yourself out there a little bit too and trust in some people, and I don't think enough people do that. I think they wait for other people to do things for them, and Chris isn't that guy. He has ideas and he tries them. If they fail, he's got another idea, but he's always working. He's a hard-working cat in and out of the ring.
You mentioned Paul Heyman, and we got to mention these names. You got a chance to work in WCW with Kevin Sullivan, of course, the late great Dusty Rhodes, and shout out to you. I loved your picture with you with Dusty you put on your Twitter page, and some fans sent it to us as well.
Thank you.
And Dusty is, of course, everybody loves Dusty, fans wise. You have a few of the boys you hear over the years talk bad about Dusty. Everybody loves Dusty. You didn't have to be a wrestling fan that loved Dusty's interviews and how he talks. And when Dusty passed, I believe it's been about a year or so, he was one of the few for me that I actually felt like crying. And I don't think anyone really understands. You grow up with these people, and of course with us being media and not wrestlers being in the business and interviewing guys like you and going to shows and talking to you, a lot of people, you grow up with these people. And when Dusty went, I know for me personally, that hit hard. And I was like, wow, I'll never forget that day ever. And
I miss him every day. There's a picture of him in my house.
Yes.
He was dear to my family. He was more than a mentor to me. We talked life and family, and he was, I miss him every day.
If you can, everyone has them. DDP mentioned them. Lanny Poffo. Everyone has a Dusty Rhodes story or stories about Dusty. And if you can,
so here's a good one. Here's a clean Dusty Rhodes story. We were going to give a tour of the Performance Center, Dusty and I, and it was for some of the WWE board members from Connecticut, some of the investors, and all the board members were coming in. So in comes this man dressed casual, but we know he's a big deal. So we're talking, and we all introduce ourselves. And Dusty Rhodes, if nothing else, he knew who he was, and he expected everyone else to know who he was. So the man introduced himself, and he says to Dusty, "Who are you?" He goes, "I'm Dusty Rhodes. Google me." But he said, I'm Dusty Rhodes. Google me, and he walked away from the tour. He wasn't going to give the guy a tour because how dare that guy not know who he was? But if you could see me standing there with my mouth wide open because Dusty just left me on this tour with this, billionaire investor, whoever he is, from the board. And at the end of the tour, the guy came back to Dusty, and they started talking. And Dusty, as only he could, started laughing with the guy, and they were sitting around like two good old boys at the end of it. And the guy had the best time of his life. But Dusty got so pissed off, he goes, "I'm Dusty Rhodes, heavyweight champion. Google me," and walked away. But he used to tell people, "Google me, you son of a bitch," and walk away. Like, how dare you not know who I am? So that was the running joke of everybody we ever met. If you didn't know who we were, we told you, "Hey, you better Google me." But Dusty was one in a million.
Yeah, we got to get that on the shirt. We have to. Get that Dusty Rhodes face put on the back. Google me. Google me, bitch. Everything like that.
Best thing I ever heard. Yeah.
If you can, with Dusty, of course his character is so larger than life. Of the words. Me and my buddies and our staff, we laugh. Him on commentary, to me, besides Bobby Heenan, it was one of my favorites and our favorites. The greatest on commentary, just making up words, belly welly and the froggy splash and the helly yelly and the old Dusty tapes we would commentating over his own matches. The way he talked, making up words, putting words together, it was Dusty. You just loved it. What are some of the misconceptions of Dusty? When we know Dusty as fans or working with him as the son of a plumber and the hard-working man.
Right.
But talk to us about Dusty, who could we say Virgil Reynolds, who was, Dusty's shoot name. Talk to us about that person if you can.
We would sit for hours after whatever work hours were considered, and we would talk about life, and he would drop, when he dropped the knowledge, he wasn't talking to his kids, as he called all the talent, his kids. He wasn't talking to his kids about wrestling. He was talking about life, and him and I would talk about family and talk about faith and talk about how to maneuver life, and him and I used to say how we navigate the muddy waters, and that was our conversation a lot. And then we talked business and because a lot of times you talk about, I should have thrown a drop kick instead of this, but we talked about the business and how to make it better and how to watch it grow. But people don't know how intelligent he was, and he was a showman, and he knew when people came in the room how to get their attention, and then he knew at the end of it, he would leave them dumbfounded by the intelligent conversations, because the man he read, his music, he had such an eclectic taste in music, but he was so intelligent, and he was a man who had lived a lifetime, and he shared that with everyone, and he could hold his own with anybody. So he chose to do it with humor to make life, happy. But the behind the scenes Dusty was just was amazing to sit and listen to him, and I would leave there better. I would leave the conversation better than when I started them, because it wasn't just about wrestling. And he always said, "There's more to life than wrestling. It's what we get to do. It's not what we do." So he was so intelligent. I wish everybody who ever met him had a chance to actually spend one whole day, and then they'd realize what a loss that we all had when we lost Dusty, because he was a dear friend, a great mentor, a great dad, a great coach, just an all-around entertainer. Just he had a wealth of knowledge that will never be replaced.
Yeah, thank you for telling us the good Dusty story. If you can, Bill, you had your push using your shoot name, Bill DeMott. We remember you would see Morris with the laugh and the little laughing matter.
Yeah.
And, you had the singlets with the laughing cry faces, and I used to always like that. Talk about your transition to Bill DeMott as a shoot and the mini push. He was getting a big push. He was squashing people, Funaki, and he was going against everyone. And then it just stopped. And then, of course, your time with WWE ended. Can you talk about your push at that time?
Well, I went the Bill DeMott, the name, my Bill DeMott was always part of Hugh Morris anyway. But Bill DeMott, when I started using my name, came from the Tough Enough, and they decided that they didn't want to use Hugh Morris anymore. They wanted the guy from TV, so I started literally just coming out and destroying people, and then I started to get a good run with Rikishi, and then Rikishi got hurt, so my run had stopped there. But my role was, I was a fill-in guy, so they knew what they could get with me, but it just never clicked. And when I broke my neck in 2003, everybody just assumed they didn't want to work with me anymore, and they just took me off the air. No, I broke my neck, and I was out. And then I started working behind the scenes and became the commentator, and then, took over the training systems and things like that. But the push was really good, and then that's what happens. Somebody on either side of the coin gets hurt, and they stop that storyline and move on to the next one. And then I suffered the broken neck, and then I had to move on as well.
The transition of being in WWE and then when they released you, was that a hard transition for you? 'Cause, sometimes when the boys get, left, WWE or WCW, or they can't wrestle, they get released by their respective companies. Some of them have a trouble transition to life after. So the knowledge that Dusty put into you about wrestling is in everything, and there's more to wrestling. Could you say that you benefited from Dusty's advice?
Oh, I benefited from his advice on a daily basis. But the same thing with the time I worked so closely with Triple H, and the time I spent with Vince, and the time and the time I was with JR, and the time all the times I got to spend with the people that really people don't even know about. So working so closely with all of them, I benefited from it, and it's led me to how I deal with people now. And when I go to meetings and when I go in front of legislature and starting this foundation, I have such a greater education than I ever could have had, I think, if I would have finished college and gotten my degree, because I you went to the school of life, and I had great teachers and learned so much from Hunter and Vince and Dusty and across the board and the boys, because the guys that you did talk to, you talked to them more than just about wrestling. and I apply everything I do with wrestling rules, and I approach everything that way. So my time in the business has been well spent.
Ask you one more question about wrestling, and then we'll go to
Sure.
real quick things outside of wrestling, since we need to talk about other things. Is you work closely with Triple H, with Paul, and you work closely with Vince, and of course, for some of the names you mentioned that you're close with, controversial names, you're always going to deal with controversy. Is talk about working with Triple H, of course, he gets a lot of heat. We know why. Married the boss's daughter, Triple H and the shovel. I'm sure you've heard all of this stuff. I can say that I'm good friends with someone who worked closely with Triple H and WWE for a good 5 to 6 years. The people that I've known in the business that work with Triple H, I've heard nothing but good things about him, which kind of gives you the perception of you have the fans that hate him because of his position, and then you have those that actually worked with him and that say nothing but good things. Not to say anyone is perfect, but you hear nothing but jubilance coming from those working with Triple H, how good of a person he is. So if you can tell us what it was like for you working with Triple H, and then also working with the man Vince.
Well, just, I think it goes back to your first part about, well, the fans say this and the sheets say this, and these people don't know anything about them. They're going off of what they think, what they hear. And let's be honest. I don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but what they see on TV is not real.
Right.
It's not real. They're all playing. Here's the spoiler alert. I'm sorry, you can say Bill DeMott said it. There's storylines, and these people are some of the best actors, stuntmen, and athletes in the world, and they carry it off great. But to be able to, it's hard to say. I don't care if we sat here and talked for 4 hours. I couldn't tell you the respect I have for Hunter and the McMahon family and the company itself, and it's just a wealth of knowledge, and the time that we got to talk about the business and learn from the ones who are actually controlling the business and building the future of it. So for Hunter to welcome me in when he did and bring me into the fold and get to join his future thought process and everything was just amazing. And it goes up and down the line, and they surround themselves with good people. And listen, if the Internet's talking about them, they must be doing something right, because if everybody knew who we really were, they'd have nothing to talk about. Because no one wants to go, everybody's great, and I love the smiles. Next, everybody wants controversy. So I get to, and it's, like I said, some people just have sour grapes, and other people just have to repeat things that they hear or see. And then we're in a day and age where people just retweet and like and, share stories that they hear instead of, But that's the business we're in, and as long as we all understand that and accept that and don't take it personally, we're going to be okay. And guess what? The people we're talking about all understand that, accept it, and don't take it personally, and that's why they're so successful, and the people who work for them are so successful.
That's a good point. Vince McMahon, the head chief, the chairman, talk about talking to Vince and working with Vince.
Well, you have to approach. I think you have to approach Vince the same way you would approach anyone else, and that's to first get to know him. So the first 6 months I was a producer and agent, I just sat and listened and took so many notes to try to understand the mindset and, the theories and get to know him and what he thought. And then, he's a very open guy to speak to, and he's a very, he's very approachable and everything like that. So I just got to know who he was instead of, some people just chose to stick on the other side of the arena and look at him and not say a word. But you got to go introduce yourself and get to know him, and him get to know you, and then you build your relationship from there. But I find him to be always honest, great business, and like I said, I respect him, and I think it's vice versa.
So something I'll bring up, I promise you, just the last wrestling question. People have said on this show, former workers, I've heard it on other top shows around, is Vince McMahon is losing his touch. You know, he's getting older. They look at the business as he's changing. The ratings are dropping. Vince doesn't know what he's doing. He needs to turn it over to Triple H. He needs to get rid of the writers. WWE is going to go down and get out of business in a couple of years. What are your thoughts? Since you worked with Vince, you worked with Triple H, you've been around them, Stephanie.
I would first say, who are the people who are saying it? What have they done in the business to give such an opinion? Or is it just, somebody from the outside looking in and going, that's terrible. And I'm a big fan of critiquing something is different than criticizing it. And if the guy is losing his touch, how do we have the network? And if he wasn't listening to Triple H, then how do we have NXT? And if they weren't doing good business, how did they just open in China? And how are all these things happening? And,
right.
And why are the ratings going through? So I think that's part of this business. And like I said it earlier. If the people who are in charge understand that, they know how to succeed because they're using that. They use that to fuel the fire. And the ratings drop in political races, and the ratings drop when Monday Night Football comes, and then the ratings pick up with this, and then the ratings go down with this, and you're still the number one longest-running episodic television show in history. So I say to all those people, wow, that's a great thought. What do you have to back it up? And if you dropped from 6 million viewers to 5.5 million viewers, yes, you dropped viewers, but 5.5 million people are watching your show. So I choose to look at it like that, and that's the things I've learned in life is instead of jumping on the bandwagon and saying, "Yeah, man, yeah, that segment, yeah, that was terrible," or "Why did?" But nobody knows what goes on behind the scenes. No one knows the time restraints. No one knows, why you have to do the things you do. No one knows injuries. No one knows. In between TVs, they're running 2 crews. They're running worldwide events. They're putting talent through college. They're putting talent through PhDs. They're doing charity work, all the things that this company does, and everybody's concerned about the ratings dropping on Monday night.
Marketing.
I'm going to go on record as saying I think they're doing okay, and I think they'll be around for a while.
Likely. Another juggernaut in, outside of wrestling now. WWE's ratings have been dropping some, but they're still ratings are pretty good. WWE's not going anywhere. It's a machine. I don't take a lot of people. I've never been to the headquarters, but we talk to enough people. You've been there. They understand the machine of WWE is more than just what you see on Monday night, Thursday night. Well, now every day of the week seems like they got a show. NXT, SmackDown, Raw. I know we joke Shotgun Saturday night, Sunday Night Heat, Jacked, all these different shows. It's so much than just the 2 or the 3 hours. Right, that you see. You have the accounts, you have the marketing, you have media, you have the movies, the studios, all these subsidiaries that WWE incorporated under. So much that goes on outside of just the 2 or 3 hours that we have to watch TV, on the network. But the NFL, I know you're a big fan of football. When NFL ratings are dropping, same thing, people are going crazy. Oh, the ratings are dropping. What are we going to do? NFL is not going nowhere. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. Right. Now, people sent me this, and we seen you, Bill, wear a New York Giants jersey, football, and then, of course, you had the picture, I believe, of your sons with Patriot jerseys. So if you can tell us your favorite NFL team. Of course, we're Ravens fans here. We're Baltimore. We don't discriminate. But talk to us about your favorite NFL team and your thoughts of the NFL currently.
Born and raised a Giants fan. I'm a Jersey boy. So in this house, we are Giants fans. I got the opportunity to meet Rob Gronkowski on a couple of different events and things like that. We had a few conversations, and he actually signed over a jersey to me, which I have in my house hanging because he's one of the best tight ends in the game.
He's Gronk.
He's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Right.
So at the time, my son and one of his best buddies, who's a New England fan, they put on all this New England stuff. So I took a picture of it, knowing that everybody who knows me knows I'm a Giants fan. There I am posting New England, and I got so much slack for that, it wasn't even funny. But it made my son and his friend laugh, so that's why I did it. But it's the New York Giants in this house. We're Blue Machine all the way. The current state of the NFL is, I think, to me, I go back to everything's wrestling rules. And we got guys who are getting in trouble and being suspended, and because society dictates now that the people have to answer for things. And let's face it, publicity is publicity. And as long as the NFL is suspending someone and making it public, they're bringing publicity on themselves. And then you go with Kaepernick and the whole thing with the flag, and I think everything every half of everything I know is a work. So I think it's just to draw the attention. It's just everything, and people follow that design in politics and in football and in baseball, and I'm just jaded in life to think that way. I knew the World Series was going to go 7 games before we had a winner, because you got to go back and forth, and the NFL is going to have bad guys and good guys, but the ratings are up, and somebody shoots a laser at what's his name's head in Mexico, and now there's international controversy and draws more attention to the NFL.
So thank you, Bill, for saying that. And spoiler alert, sorry fans is listening. All of y'all that's been fans of the show going on 4 years should know we talk more than just wrestling. We talk about everything else under the sun. And to me, I always feel a lot of our guests always enjoy it most when we don't talk wrestling, about everything else. It's, as I said before, everything is a work. It's, I love baseball, Orioles fan. I love baseball. One of my first loves was wrestling. The Cubs, like you said, 7 games, we knew it. You have the NFL with the Giants fans, and then you have Tom Brady, and every time they win the Super Bowl, it's a controversy. It's the Deflategate, and inflated balls, and the Spygate, and all of a sudden the tapes got